A single brick lies in the center canvas, accompanied by a satisfying click when put to use. LEGO Builder's Journey encourages the learning process in the same way it encourages building, one step at a time. It only takes a minute or two before two figures emerge, one small and one large, a father and son, it appears. The canvas is now evidently a beach, complete with translucent bricks to mimic the ocean waves. This time, the build is that of a sandcastle, and along with it, some creative freedom on how you make it. As I progressed through the game, I wondered perhaps there is a link between myself as a player, the father, and the son in this world. Maybe LEGO Builder's Journey promotes building upon each other's creative ideas in this form, and that building meaningful connections with another person in a step-by-step process bears a strong relationship to the process of physical building with LEGO pieces. That the two philosophies are interconnected, woven into each other when LEGO is seen as a cooperative engagement. As time went on, LEGO Builder's Journey strayed from the limits of simple structures and meshed the philosophy of problem solving into its gameplay. How then should a son reach his father in what appears to be a particularly perilous environment? How can the bricks I have access to allow me to make a bridge or a path? Well, that is your problem to fix. What is encouraged here and throughout the rest of the journey is the integration of that very creativity alongside problem solving. And in turn, LEGO Builder's Journey rewards the player with an accomplishment for doing so. It is clear that LBJ's philosophy was that building in-game should mimic the sense of real LEGO. That the commitment, sound, and even the shifting perspective when rotating the block or the camera should look and feel as it would with real physical pieces. Each canvas, or level if you will, allows for moving the camera by holding the right mouse button. Blocks can be turned with the left mouse button, and holding it down enables you to simply click it into place, assuming it's lined up correctly. It's easy to spot this alignment by a simple bobbing animation, and the piece will magnetically fixate on the selected location. LBJ bolsters this philosophy of showcasing realism by employing an impressive array of graphical prowess in its settings too. A full set of ray tracing features are available for tweaking, allowing light to correctly bounce and diffuse off each brick. Features like chromatic aberration split light into its spectral components at the edge of objects, mimicking a flaw that almost all camera lenses have. Subsurface scattering replicates how light behaves under the surface of a material, bouncing through its contents and leaving at a different point than it entered. In reality, this effect is often shown off with a torch behind the fingers or a light source behind the ears, allowing illumination of blood and flesh in such a way as to suggest density in its obstruction. This may seem like a glorified tech demo on the surface then. But what LBJ is trying to do is tell a meaningful story behind it all. Its goal is to do that by bringing together a realistic vision of both in-game pieces and the purchasable product as closely as possible. The story is only a handful of hours long, depending on your pace, and so the argument of the game being a playable advertisement is legitimized somewhat by these factors. What is the purpose of putting so much effort into bringing out the reality of the product for such a short gameplay time frame? Past this point is a subjective interpretation that only the player can decide, but for me personally, its technical aspects both hindered and excelled at making its story enjoyable. For example, large fluctuations of brightness between levels meant that some areas were particularly difficult to build in. It's hard to build if you can't see where you're building, and LBJ wants you to build specifically in certain areas. This is clear on bright maps, but not so much on dark ones. Placing blocks can often feel a little janky at times too, almost as if my actions don't quite line up with the inputs in the game, and what results is a sort of floaty and slippery mix when trying to line up a piece. This loss of intricate control inhibits the flow of the journey. It distracts from creative building when attention is pulled away from a goal and focused elsewhere. However, while some flaws are painfully evident during gameplay, LBJ does a good job of forcing the player's perspective in such a way that it funnels creative thinking into simple tasks. The playable character is often the boy in this story, unable to jump large distances. Each step is important, and bricks must be planned and placed in such a way that his path enables him to reach a goal. This is usually getting him from one side of the level to the other and consists of creative thinking with a limited array of pieces. If it were LBJ's goal to introduce the use of its vast heterogeneity of LEGO, then this approach would be a problem, but instead it teaches you how to begin and stick to each puzzle, to view it as both a micro and macro task. This is where LBJ becomes fun and engaging, and it's also where it shifts gears into a story setting. The story takes the boy across a variety of different environments, fabricating relatable emotions as well as conveying them in small environments with imaginative settings for scenes to take place. Levels are all very cute and small. Moving from one to the next is like turning the pages in a storybook to see what happens next. Only LBJ's narration is told sonically rather than vocally, told through music and sound effects. Henrik Lindstrand produced a soundtrack that often matches the flow of placing bricks in an elevated strategy. Soft but impactful piano notes project both simplicity and intent behind each note, and each track builds a sense of optimism and creative instinct. Music moves at a pace that syncs with an intrinsic journey, almost as if it's telling you, you have a fun job ahead of you. There is very little percussion in each track, perhaps to be accompanied by the soft clicking and tapping sounds made by each brick as they're pressed into place, or the inevitable destruction and clattering of pieces as they are tossed around each level. Lindstrand's soundtrack blends both the musical interpretation of pursuit, intent, and perseverance that is linked with LEGO building, along with the emotional ties between a lost father and son brilliantly. There is a touching sense through LBJ's music that all my actions are important, that my process, even the failings, are contributing to a greater goal in the long run. It never fails to make me feel that it's okay to be stuck sometimes, to take your time and think through each problem at a pace that suits you. This approach often promotes creativity when the reins of pressure are relaxed a little. LEGO represents creative freedom in its most basic form, one which bears no language barrier for entry, and it emphasizes this aspect within the first few levels. It also attempts to tell an emotional story about connection, not only to the process of physical building with LEGO bricks, but of a connection between a father and son. That relationships are often built on a foundation of teamwork, trust, and love. It just so happens that these factors also inspire the production of something fun and creative in the LEGO universe too. LBJ places the player in a world of imagination with each level. It is a glimpse into what can be achieved with the right mindset and motivation. The weaving of its playful, relaxing soundtrack and calming environment specifically made for creative thought put me in an almost meditative trance. Perhaps LBJ's purpose was to unearth that flow state that was prolific in children playing with LEGO for the first time, to uncover that sense of building with a purpose regardless of the outcome. to embrace the concept of a world in which stretching your inventive legs, so to speak, was a normal part of life, an ordinary part of growing between a father and son. This idea may be nostalgic for some, and LBJ certainly capitalizes on that aspect. There is a creative mode available for those who just want to play and unleash their imagination with no distractions. But this LEGO journey aimed to create a world alongside that process, and I'd say it was successful in that regard. Overall, the experience I had served as a little reminder that a single step, or piece in this case, can flourish into a great journey if you let it.